Let's see what's going on. I don't know if I got this thing going right, or how do I let people in? Where is
Well,
that window?
I think they're coming in. Hey, folks.
Okay, good. All right,
Yeah,
there we go.
I'm seeing us. Yeah, they're pouring on in here. I'm super excited to see you all here. Yeah. Where are you all coming in from? Just curious. I'm in Georgia. Same time zone. We're in the same time zone. Yeah, come on in, Charleston. All right. Hey, Tanya. This is Tanya. Let me go into chat so I can see all of our friends. All right. And Elizabeth, is it Marnie or Marna? Melvin, Shamira, Mela, Christy. Hey, everybody. Latanya, Candace. I'm so glad you guys are here. Oh, from everywhere. You guys are coming in from different places, right? Looks like I see Denver, North Carolina. Sorry. All righty. Good deal. So lots of South Carolina, North Carolina. Oh, okay, we got Memphis. Candace is representing Tennessee. Hey guys, I'm so glad you're here. I got you, Jamaica. You're going to be on mute. I can't be on mute, but gotcha. You can be on mute. Hey, Leslie and Christina and Anna. Hey there, everybody. I'm so glad that you guys are joining us this morning. Can you let me know? I won't be able to stay in chat for very long, but I am curious to know who's in our audience. So as you're introducing, we got Cynthia from Hawaii. Oh my God, the Big Island. I love that place. All right, I'm distracted easily, as you can see. Anyway, love to know, have you started a nonprofit already? Because some of you may have done that. Or are you preparing to start a nonprofit? Let me know in the chat. Have you started? Thinking about it? Where are you? Okay, preparing. Okay, good deal. Preparing. Everybody's preparing. Okay, good. All right, thinking about it. All right, company. Somebody has a company. It's going really fast. Okay, gotcha. Texas is in the house. I saw that really quick. Okay. Hmm. Started. Some folks started. You're still in the right place. Okay. All right. I know we've got a schedule, Pete, so I'm going to let you go get to that. Thank you, everybody, for hanging out with me in the chat.
All right, I'll just make a brief introduction. I'm Peter Safer with Charlotte Score, and I'm serving as the moderator, which means I hopefully will not mess up the Zoom call. Last time I did this, it got cut off at the end, but it turned out it wasn't my mistake. So hopefully we'll go the full trip here with Cheryl today. If you have seen Cheryl before, you know she is one of the best in the nation presenters for Score for sure. And she's unbelievably energetic and resourceful and a joyful partner. She's going to give you some information today. It goes fast. We do believe that everyone who is registered will get a copy of slides that she has made available and access to a recording of the session. It doesn't always happen, but it's supposed to happen in the first week. And so if there's any problem, you can potentially call or contact Peter Safer at SCORE or possibly go back to the registration, but we'll get that to you. So Cheryl is the founder and CEO of Doolin in Atlanta. She is a highly sought after consultant, but she donates this time to SCORE, which is a huge gift and really one of the best in the nation. We're totally pleased. And so she and I have done these together. She basically makes my job painless and easy. So I'm basically going to introduce Cheryl to take over. And she does somehow keep up to some extent with your questions in the chat or other text box. So we'll take them as time permits. But right now, enjoy the presentation, and she will guide you as to when she can take some of those questions. And I'm going to remove myself from view so that you can see just Cheryl. Thank you and welcome everybody.
Thank you so much, Pete, and thank you to Charlotte, the SCORE chapter, for allowing us to have this conversation. I love this conversation because this means that you all are getting ready to do some amazing things in your communities, in the world, even. And for that, I am truly grateful. So today is really about you. It's about you. It's about what you need. And that's the reason why I kind of dip into the chat to see where we are and we're where we're supposed to be. We've got folks joining us from all over. We've got individuals who have started nonprofits, and those of you who are still thinking about it, you're tinkering around in your brain if this is a good idea or not. you're in the right place. I have lots of slides to share. My slides tend to be, let's see, content heavy because I want to make sure that you have what you need past this conversation. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and start right now and get us right into our presentation. Oops. And Pete, I just sent a request to share screen. Let's see if I can do it now. Almost. There we go. Okay. We're in business. Alrighty, so make this really big, and you guys should be able to see my full screen right now. Take me away. All right, and we're gonna start from the beginning. There we go. Thank you. Thank you for a thumbs up. Alrighty. So this presentation is called Starting a Nonprofit, a Step-by-Step Guide, presented by me, Cheryl Smith, hosted on SCORE's platform. And we want to thank SCORE again for allowing us to have the conversation and to share in this meaningful information that, again, it's my hope will help your nonprofit move forward faster in compliance and set up for sustainability and funding. I am Cheryl Smith. I've been in the nonprofit arena for over 25 years. I think I've been saying that for at least 5 years, so it's probably closer to 30. I enjoy this work so much. About, let's see, 9 years ago or so, in 2017, I started my own company. I just had this pull, this push, as I'm sure many of you are experiencing right now, where I knew that I was supposed to do more. You know, I knew that, my time here on this planet is limited. I knew that from the time we're born, we're eligible to die. And I wanted to make sure that my dash in between meant something. All right. And so I decided to start a nonprofit, an organization that supports nonprofit leaders across the US. And so far, I've been able to share information with just about people in just about every state. Yeah, I can't really think of a state where I've not either trained or supported people as they start on this journey. So it's my pleasure to be here with you today. I'm not an attorney or a CPA. I am a nonprofit public charity expert. There are probably 30 codes or so, nonprofit codes. It's the 501(c)(3) that I specialize in. So I usually don't take a lot of questions on many of the other codes just because I'm transparently honest and I don't pretend to be something that I don't know. So I'm going to respond to questions that's within my wheelhouse. And outside of that, if I can, I'll get you to the right place. I think that our time together is going to be about 60 minutes of just me giving you information. Okay. This is a tell you where and not necessarily item by item show you how presentation. So this is what you're going to need if you're serious about this kind of conversation. 20 minutes or so, could be more of Q&A time. I'm thinking that I may check in midway, but I have just found that it is sometimes better to get through the presentation because a lot of the questions, like right now, that you may be thinking, we will probably cover along the way, right? And so, what I try to say for these kind of presentations that are not like hands-on workshops, that you just maybe sit back, get yourself in a comfy space, close your door so that you can focus and focus on the information at hand. When we get through our presentation, or if we have a midway stop, if there's something that's not making sense and just not really clicking, let me know that, okay? So that I can circle back and make sure that you've got good information. Let's see. Questions. I can't wait to get to your questions. I would say please put the questions in the Q&A because as you can see in the chat, it gets really busy. We're talking to each other, which is fine with me, but it's hard for me to dig out and get your questions there. I may miss one and I don't want to do that. So if you wouldn't mind putting your questions in the Q&A for me so that when we do pause, I can easily get to those questions and then respond. Let's see. Presentation. This presentation is being recorded by SCORE, not me. And what that means is that your slides or your replay isn't going to come from me. I often get folks that'll inbox me to ask, please send the, recording. I don't actually have it. So I want you to rely on SCORE for that. And I promise you, it's their intent to get it to you. And if for any reason you don't get it in, say, a week, I think it'll be sooner than that, but in a week, just reach out to SCORE, to the branch that hosts it. So you're going to be reaching out to SCORE, the Charlotte, North Carolina chapter, all right, to get those slides and to get the recording. And I'm thinking that's all I can think about right this second. And I'm going to go ahead now and dive in with making sure that you're in the right place. And I think you are. We did a little test earlier, and I think you're where you're supposed to be. So if you're wanting to start a public charity, a 501c3 nonprofit, you are in the right space. If you've just started one, but you're thinking, maybe somehow you've missed a milestone or something that you didn't quite know. And sometimes you don't know even the questions to ask. You've been in that position. I know I have, where you know there's something you should know, but you don't even know the right question or how to phrase it. Well, you are in the right space, okay? Because we're going to cover some foundational things. If you're undecided, you have not decided that you're starting anything. You're just curious about this process and thinking this could be an option for you. You were also in the right space, okay? So I am so glad that you have decided to join us today. Now, our conversation is topic driven. And I like to say that up front because oftentimes, and I know I'm guilty of this too, we'll join a presentation because we see like one word and we think that the thing we're thinking in our head for that word, like nonprofit, also means grants, also means transitioning, also means bringing on staff, also means all these other things. And usually with me, it doesn't, because there's so much information in this nonprofit sector to get out that I tend to stay with the topic so that I can make sure we cover it. So our topic today is how you start a nonprofit. We will not be talking about grant writing, how you start grants and how you fundraise and all those other things that I know you need. All right. That's not today because we can't get that in without diluting the information that I've come here to share with you. Okay. Those courses are out there. They're either out there because I presented them through SCORE or some other means, or they're out there through another trainer. So don't just rely on me. There are some amazing trainers out there with great information that they cannot wait to share with you. If you're looking for other trainings that I have done on some of those topics that I just described, well, all you'll need to do is go on over to score.org, right? Score.org. And then in the search queue, put in my name, Cheryl Smith. If you put in Cheryl Smith, you're going to just have a laundry list, a nice list of the trainings that I have done. Some that are upcoming and some that are pre-recorded. And grant writing and fundraising and all of those are things that I do on a regular basis. And I'm thinking Charlotte may even have those on their platform, but you can find those trainings there. But today, this is what we're talking about here. We're going to define a nonprofit. I'm going to show you where to start or how to start your nonprofit. We're going to talk a little bit about compliance. That really is its own training, but we're going to touch on it. We're going to touch on funding, but and in the process of starting the new nonprofit and not necessarily a deep dive into different funding modalities. And then I'm going to share a few resources, and then we're going to wrap up. On our wrap up, I'm going to come back to you live, obviously, like this, and then I want to take your questions because along the way, there's probably things that probably either didn't make sense or you want me to expand on. And I am so happy to do that. Let's see, what else do I want to share? Oh, you might see me doing this from time to time. I've started announcing this in trainings. That's menopause. That's not nervousness. Okay, so now that's out of the way. We're going to get started with our thought for today. And our thought is the best time to plant a tree was 10 years ago, but the next best time is now. I know that if this is this important that you're going to show up today to hang out with me for an hour, that you've been thinking about this more than just this morning. It's been on your heart, it's been on your mind. I mean, my God, you probably even dream about this vision and this mission or whatever it is that's happening in your community. You've just had enough and think something's got to be done about it. And you're thinking sometimes, gosh, I wish I had started this a year ago, 2 years ago. I'd already be funded right now. And I want to share something with you. Not necessarily. You are where you're supposed to be. This is divine timing. Nothing is late. And everything that is for you will and must reach you. Okay. Nobody's going to take your seat in this life. It's yours. And so you are starting exactly where you need to be. All right. And so just wanted to reassure you on that. All right. So now let's go ahead and dig right into defining your nonprofit. Oh my goodness. We get so many different definitions of what a nonprofit is out there. So let me first and foremost say nonprofit is a legal status under your state law. Okay. And before you can even become a public charity, you have to first become a legal entity in your state. Right. And so most states, you're a corporation. There's only a few, I think like 5 states that allow you to be an LLC. All right. Most nonprofit public charities are corporations. So that happens at the state level, right? You organize yourself for mutual or public benefit and not for the benefit of shareholders. And the reason is there are no shareholders. This is the corporation type that doesn't have shareholders. The other corporations, the S Corp, the C Corp, they do. But a nonprofit corporation has stakeholders, not shareholders. So that means that you cannot share profits, right? And that's really important for you to know that. You have a board, you have volunteers, you may even have staff at some point, but you will never profit share because you don't have shareholders, right? You've got founder, you got a governing body, right? And we're going to talk more about that for sure later on because you may have questions about, well, what is this governing body? What do they do? What does it look like? We're going to talk about that, okay? So that's it. Nonprofit, usually corporation, entity that's legal at the state level. That's your starting point. Now, many of you will decide that you really do want public charity status because you already know what that is, or somebody said you should, or you have a keen idea that when you do add this tax code on, that you've got tax exemption from your income taxes that you earn. You earn income and you don't have to pay taxes on that income. And that's attractive to a lot of you. All right. Not all of you, believe it or not, but most of you will decide to go ahead and take the next step. Public charity means that you've added a tax code. That's what you've done. A tax code. It's 501(c)(3). Okay, that's what a public charity is. And this one is unique because it allows you to earn up billions. I mean, there really isn't a limit on what you can earn as long as it's mission aligned work and you will not pay taxes on it. That's right. So if you think about some of the largest organizations out there that are public charities, what comes to mind? Salvation Army, Goodwill, Good 360, United Way, Boys and Girls Club, it goes on, right? Feeding America. They bring in so much money, billions. They actually do, all of them. They bring in billions of dollars, and the mission aligned work they do, they're not taxed on it, not at the federal level or not at the state level. They've asked the IRS, as you will too, or have, for many of you who've started, to do something extraordinary. You're asking the federal agency that was established to collect money to not do that. Okay. That's a big deal. And because you're asking that, there are requirements of you. Okay. And we're going to talk about those. So just so you know, very unique status. The other statuses don't get to do this. There's other nonprofit or IRSC codes that are out there that are income tax exempt, but this is the one that says your donors also have some type of reprieve from their tax liability at the end of the year if they support you. All right. And that's a really good thing. Okay. So now let's talk before we jump in about who's out there. There's about 2 million nonprofits that are registered with our IRS in our country right now. All right. And I'm going to tell you, over double, maybe even triple that number really exist because every state has nonprofits that never took the next step to be tax exempt. All right. So you've got those, and then you've got the statutory nonprofits, and those are like your schools, your churches, okay? Churches, religious organizations. Now they don't need to go and become IRS tax exempt in order to be exempt from income taxes and offer deductibility of their donors. They're statutory. Many religious organizations or churches will do that because they want to apply for grants, and funders want to see that you've got yourself tax exempt because they think of it as another layer of transparency. But I'm saying all this to say there's a lot of you out there, right? 10% of our GDP comes in from revenue that's earned, through our nonprofit sector. We call it the third sector. About 60% of all nonprofit founders are women. Gentlemen, still come on aboard. We still need you, but most of them out there are women. And the average age is in the middle 50s, right? And I'm seeing that come down. It used to be higher, it used to be around 58. Now it's around 53 because we've got younger individuals becoming founders. And so that's changing our demographic. Now, in your state, and I'm saying this loosely because although North Carolina is hosting, I did see in our chat that many of you are coming from other states, but we're talking about North Carolina here, and there's just under 60,000 nonprofits, of which 48,000 are public charities. And then if we exclude the churches, the schools, the universities, and government units, we've got about 37,000 nonprofits that's registered with the IRS in the state of North Carolina. All right. And that breaks down to about, well, if we consider last year, y'all brought in about 1,200 new nonprofits. So that's about 200 or more nonprofits that are established in this one state and becoming tax exempt in this one state every single month. Over 200. That's a lot. We're adding on, folks, more than ever before. I don't remember the exact number, but I want to say it's just over 1,200 in the one state that was became a nonprofit public charity in the state of North Carolina last year in 2025. So actually, it was more than that. I know it was more than that. And so I'm saying to you to say, you're not alone out there. There's a lot of you out there wanting to do amazing work. And I, for one, I'm very grateful. Okay, enough on that. Let's go ahead and we're going to get into the pros and cons. All right, so let's talk about public charities on a deeper level. So let's first get into the 501c3 public charity advantages, right? So there's advantages and there's disadvantages. I love having the dessert first. So we're going to talk about the advantages first. And so, first and foremost, if you decide that you're going to really do this, you will be a separate and perpetual legal entity. That means it is designed to outlive you. It can make decisions. Your corporation can enter into and exit out of agreements, legal agreements, right? It can act independently, right? And so you, the founder, will forever be the founder, but this organization is designed to outlive you unless you solve the mission, right? Contributor to social good. You are no longer doing this as a hobby. This is now, you're now a professional social good do-gooder, right? And that's a great thing, right? So this is what you're contributing to your community and to the world. Federal and state tax exemption, we've already touched on that. And that just, I talked about the federal, but the state level, when you're federally tax exempt, you're entitled for the same at the state level, right? So that means you're not going to be paying income tax at the state level either, as long as it's mission aligned work. Your eligibility for grants. Now, I know that when COVID happened years ago, lots of small businesses started looking for grants and in many cases finding grants. Okay. And lots of corporations decided they were going to get out there and support more than the nonprofit. But I will assure you, there are more grants out there for nonprofits than any other anything, right? And so you become eligible widespread for grant opportunities, all right? And that's a good thing. Your donors, we talked about this, can claim federal income tax deductions for donations made to a 501c3 public charity, all right? And so actually even to private foundations, but suffice it to say, that helps a lot of donors who they're itemizing their taxes and they're looking for how they can decrease their tax liability at the end of the year. And supporting you is one way they can do that. All right. Free stuff. My goodness, there's so much free stuff. Do I have a screen for that? Yeah, I do. Well, one, there's a training literally where we talk 45 minutes or an hour on just what's out there free and low cost for the nonprofit community. But for our conversation here today, I'm just going to cover these things here. And so email addresses, Google for nonprofit, once you're tax exempt, I'm a small business and I'm able to get a business account through Google too, but I pay for it. If you're a nonprofit and you go through Google for nonprofit, you can have unlimited email addresses for free. Google offers so many other great things too, really. There's free website. There are organizations like 48 and 48 that's out there that will create your website for absolutely free as long as you're tax exempt. You get discounts and free accounts. I've got Canva listed. That's where you can design things, donor management, fundraising, project management. There are so many great things out there. Supplies, Good 360 is amazing. And nair.org is the other one. They allow you to register and literally either pay almost nothing or get it free, free or low cost items in bulk where you just pay the shipping because you're a nonprofit. It feels like the world said, okay, you want to go out there and do some good things in the world. We want to help you. And so there's lots of opportunities for support. Now, in terms of your disadvantages, these are perceived. I'm not necessarily saying I agree with all of these, okay? But this is what I hear. And by the way, all of my trainings are usually based on questions and or complaints sometimes that I get about what's happening out there in the world. And so I'm going to list some things that I've heard time and again that are disadvantages that maybe you want to know before you engage in this sector, okay? The first is paperwork and cost. You don't get away from either of those, even if you hired somebody, right? Hiring means you probably paid someone, i.e., your cost. All right. And so there's paperwork. You've got to actually complete the IRS application. All right. And so you're going to incorporate yourself. You're going to get an EIN. We're going to talk about all of these things, but you also have your application itself. And then you have costs associated with both of those. And I don't actually know of a grantor that gives you a grant to become a nonprofit. So some of these costs you just got to be ready for upfront, right? And so everything in the nonprofit community isn't going to be free to you. You want to look at this as though you are becoming a business because you are essentially. And so there is going to have to be skin in the game from you. You can't expect that people are going to just pay for everything for you. This is still a business, right? And people also, your attorneys and things, they also need to earn their income. So there's paperwork and there's cost. There's also restrictions, right? So there's some restrictions on board, how you pay your board, or your highest paid employees. And it doesn't mean you can't, because you can. It's just it's frowned upon when you pay a board to be a board member of a nonprofit corporation. And the reason for that is traditionally board members have been voluntary. And it's just the tradition for this industry. You know how if you are a corporation, S Corp or C Corp, and you've got shareholders, when the corporation does well, then the shareholders, they profit share and they actually get money to be on the board. That's actually the reverse for the nonprofit. In addition to not receiving profit sharing capability, you as a board member are expected to donate and give to the organization that you serve on. So you have to keep that piece in mind. So going back to restrictions, there are some funders that say if you're paying a board member, then you're not eligible for this funding. All right. So you just got to know that, keep that in your pocket. But you can pay. And what I recommend to most people is just come off of the board and become, say, the executive director and then pay yourself. All right. Well, with board approval. All right. Restrictions upon dissolution. So the other restrictions is that, of course, you can dissolve. Of course, you can. But if you do, there's a process to that. Most states require that you get attorney general permission. That's right. You can't liquidate assets without permission from the state attorney general. And even if you liquidate, that doesn't, the money and the assets don't belong to you. And you might be thinking, well, hey, I bought that building, I bought that van. Well, now it belongs to the nonprofit. And once you give something to the nonprofit, it belongs to the nonprofit, and no, you may not take it back. It's assets, and if you ever decide to dissolve or close the nonprofit, then you're required by law, federal and state law, to either give those assets to another 501(c)(3) public charity or to your treasury department at your state in which they're going to liquidate and keep the money. Okay, so I just want you guys to be aware of that. There's some restrictions upon dissolution. People don't really talk about that much, but it's there. You also have, furthering these restrictions, you have restrictions on political activities. The IRS says that if you're a public charity, you cannot campaign at all. Not under the public charity, at least. You can't. No trying to get somebody in office or out of office. Lobbying to a limited degree. And lobbying just means that maybe you're trying to influence the legislation and possibly, have a law change that's going to benefit maybe your constituents in your area. That makes sense to the IRS. They allow you to do it to a nominal degree. I mean, small amount. But if you get too hot and heavy into influencing the legislation and lobbying, then you can jeopardize your IRS determination status. Okay. And then there are oversight. There are things that you have to absolutely know. And we're going to touch a little bit on this later on in our conversation. but this has to do with unrelated business income tax, private benefit and annuitment, and annual filing. So the unrelated business income tax, I think you probably picked up that I've said mission aligned work is not tax exempt because it isn't. But if you're out there and you're doing something under your nonprofit's name umbrella that is not in alignment with the mission you shared or the purpose that you shared with the IRS when you were established, remember this is the agency that wants to collect your money. So if you're acting contrary to what you've said, then that income that you bring in will not be tax exempt. You will have to pay taxes on it. And you might be thinking, okay, well, no worries because all this other income I'm not going to pay taxes on. And so, it's a balancing game. Not quite. If you have over $1,000 in unrelated business income, you have to formally notify the IRS of that. And if you continue doing that, you will lose your IRS determination letter. Okay. So they have checks and balances in place to ensure that you're adhering to your purpose areas. Private benefit and annulment, that is what it basically sounds like. You are doing something for your own private benefit. And when I say you, that means the people in power, right, within your organization. You are doing things, you've established this organization primarily for your own benefit. You've got a youth program that takes people into other countries, but only your kids can go. You offer scholarships for college, but only your relatives can get the scholarship. That kind of thing is not okay with the IRS, all right? And so that's private benefit. And annulment is just back to that profit sharing. You're taking the profits and the assets of the nonprofit. Again, that's not okay. The annual filing, we are going to talk about that, but every year the IRS does expect you to communicate with them about what has been going on in your nonprofit for that previous year. Okay. And that's an annual requirement that can land you in a lot of trouble, including being dissolved by the IRS if you don't do it. And we'll talk about that. All right. And the last thing, whew, don't shoot the messenger. You don't own it. You don't own it. It's a public charity. That's just not a term that's thrown out there. It is actually truth. It is public. You don't own it. There are no owners. No one owns a public charity. So I often hear people say, "Well, I'm going to have a small business, and we're going to have an arm." I love that. We're going to have an arm that's a nonprofit. There's no arm that's a public charity. Public charities cannot be contained. You may have heard of, say, I use the example of Coca-Cola, and then there's the Coca-Cola Foundation, or where y'all, North Carolina, Publix, and then there's the Publix Foundation or charity. Well, that's because those are private foundations and they have a different set of requirements with the IRS. But public charities that are 501(c)(3) public charities can't do the same things that private foundations can do. And we will talk about some of those in just a sec. And so your nonprofit cannot be owned. It can be governed, but it cannot be owned. And that means you can't leave it in your will. I had somebody ask me, could they leave it in their will for their kids? No, you can't do that because there are no owners. Your business, I said, I have a business. I can sell my business. It's mine. You cannot sell a nonprofit. It's not owned. So I'm hoping I drove that point in because that's a question I get on a regular basis. All right. And so we got that piece. So let's go ahead and talk about the private foundation versus the public charity because I have a lot of folks who, if you're undecided and this isn't something you do every day, how are you to know, right? And so I want to kind of shed some light on some of the fundamental differences. There are a lot of differences, but we're going to talk about the primary difference that should help you make a decision whether or not the private foundation or the public charity, which one is right for you. We're going to start with public support. So, public support means that you're bringing in public dollars, money that's not yours, right? So, you're bringing in money from fundraising. Maybe it's individual contributions. Maybe it is grants, whether it's from private foundations or, the government. You're doing something to bring in dollars that did not belong to you, the governing body, right? And for private foundations, they don't have that requirement because the IRS says if you're a private foundation, you're bringing in private funds. So you've got more power and control because you're bringing in your own money. You're not going to be dealing with the public's money. And they don't have to keep the same kind of eye on you and those funds as they do the public charities. If you decide to be a public charity, you are required. It's not, I think I'll fundraise one time. You are required every single year every year for the eternity of your charity to bring in public funds annually. And so if you're one of those people that say, I'm not comfortable fundraising and asking people for money, and nobody else on my board is either, then you're not in the right industry, or at least in the right section of 501c, because public charities have to do that. You recall that I mentioned some of the larger nonprofits like the Good 360, Feeding America, Salvation Army, etc. Do you know? And let's just take Salvation Army. They were established in the mid 1800s during the Industrial Revolution, okay? And they came over to the US just before the 19th century, the 20th century. And today, fast forward 21st century, they are still asking for public dollars every single year. Yeah, because it's a requirement in order to remain a public charity in this country. All right, so keep that piece in mind. Give grants to public charities. And what I mean by give grants is, you know what a grant is. A grant is an instrument that's used for somebody to apply for and receive money that's not theirs, and it doesn't have to be repaid unless you default or somehow and you're not doing what you're supposed to do. But typically, grants aren't repaid. And so, do private foundations have to give grants to public charities? Do public charities have to give grants to other public charities? Well, here's your answer. For private foundations, yes, they do. That's a requirement from the IRS. Public charities, I answered no, but there's an asterisk there. I answered no because most public charities, unless you are a community foundation, right, or federated like the United Way, most public charities don't give grants to other public charities. And it's not because it's illegal. It's just that's usually not why you became a public charity. You're boots on the ground, you're doing the work, you're relying on grants to fund you. You're usually not giving grants. You might help people, but you're usually not giving grants to other public charities. All right. And doesn't mean you can't, but usually that's not the case. How about receives private foundation grants? And that is, does a private foundation receive private foundation grants? Are they eligible for it? Do public charities receive private foundation grants? Are they eligible? Well, the answer to that is for private foundations, no. Private foundations are usually not, you're usually not eligible to apply for a grant from another private foundation. So that's first and foremost. Usually, when you go to any grant database and you look at the requirements, private foundations do not give grants to other private foundations. The asterisk is because it's not illegal, it just triggers IRS compliance things that they don't want to get into. So most private foundations don't give grants to each other. They expect the other private foundation to have their own money just like they do. For public charity, yes, again, that's a requirement. Private foundations are required by our IRS to give at minimum 5% of their net adjusted gross investment income from the previous year to public charities. And so that's a requirement. Many of them give way more than the 5%, but at the very minimum, they're required to do that. In terms of are you eligible, it depends. Private foundations get to determine their own cause. Maybe you're not mission aligned. They get to tell you no. Maybe they want to find their own public charities to support. They get to do that, right? But generally speaking, you as a public charity would be eligible for some private foundation grants out there. In terms of diverse board requirements, so what's meant by that? Diverse board just means, according to the IRS, it has nothing to do with your nationality, your skin color, none of that, right? People used to argue with me about that. Yes, it does, Cheryl. No, it doesn't. Diverse board has to do with your family, right? So the IRS says that the majority of your board have to be unrelated to you. So is that requirement a requirement for private foundations and public charities, one or the other, or none? Okay, well, the answer to that is private foundations don't have that requirement. One person can start a private foundation, right? One, bring all your money, do the things the IRS said, and you're fine. One person and all their family, their mother, their brother, their sister, their aunt, everybody can be on the board. The IRS doesn't concern themselves with that for private foundations because, again, it's their money, all right? Public charity, the requirement is absolutely yes. It is not a legal process to have a public charity where you have got the majority family members. The majority have to be unrelated to you, okay? And in December of last year, year before rather, the IRS really rewrote their instruction guide for applying for tax exemption so that people would know without any uncertainty what they meant by family. And I think we know. We know what they mean, but the IRS said this includes an individual's spouse, ancestors, ancestors, folks, children, grandchildren, great grandchildren, siblings, whether whole or half blooded, and their spouses, children, grandchildren, great grandchildren, and siblings. I think ancestors just spelled it out there. And so this is what the IRS says family means, but we inherently know, but they had so much pushback with not, being vague and not being, having this precise enough. And so this is their definition of family. So the majority of your family members may not be on your board. All right, so we're going to keep going. I know we might have questions. Go ahead and plug them in the Q&A, and we're going to get through starting a public charity. And we're probably going to just go because I'm thinking many of your questions are going to have to do with some of the things we're going to answer. So we're probably going to go on through. And so starting a public charity is our second section. All right. And I remember I've been in this industry for a long time, folks, but I hadn't always started nonprofits. When I started doing this 15, whatever years ago, 20 years ago when I started, I remember thinking that the process looked like this chalkboard. I remember thinking, how in the world? It wasn't as easy because we have now different layers. We can start a public charity using, a short form or a long form. But back in the day, there was just the long form, okay? And it wasn't intuitive, I'll put it that way. And so one of the things I wanted to make sure we did was for all of you out there who wanted to tackle this on your own, not necessarily hire somebody to do it. I wanted you to understand what's involved. And so we can simplify this a bit for you, okay? So let's start off with, can anybody start a public charity? And of course you can, as long as you fall into one of these different tax purposes or exempt purposes. So the IRS says that you've got to be charitable, religious, educational. You've got to be scientific, literary, testing for public safety. You've got to be fostering national or international amateur sports or preventing cruelty to children or animals. If you can say, honestly and transparently, that what you're getting ready to do falls into one of those purpose areas, then that means that you're ready to go to the next step. Not ready to apply, but ready to go to the next step. Okay. And so here are your steps. And so I'm going to go through them and then I'm going to actually dig deep into each of them. Okay. And so your 7 steps, doesn't matter which state you're in. It actually doesn't matter which country you're in. These are the 7 steps if you want to be a nonprofit public charity in our United States. You're going to choose a relevant name. So first off, choose a relevant name. You're going to assemble a board of directors, draft your bylaws, form your nonprofit corporation, hold your first meeting to adopt those bylaws, obtain your EIN, and then you're going to complete your IRS Form 1023 or IRS Form 1023 EZ, and that's how you apply for your tax exemption. It really does boil down to just these 7 steps, okay? Let's talk about these, all right? So let's start with your name. I'm actually going to read to you all. I'm normally a live trainer, but since, COVID, we all went online. So I'm going to read to you because I need you to hear this. So even close your eyes and listen to me read this because this is important. All right, number 1. Locus International Center for Entrepreneurship Development and Incubation Services Limited. That was 10 words and 91 characters. Number 2, the Society for the Prevention of Calling Sleeping Car Porters George because their real name is always George. 18 words, 113 characters. Number 3, this is the company with the longest name so far and incorporated at the Registry of Companies in England and Wales and encompassing the registries based in Scotland. 27 words, 160 characters. And I did not misspell Scotland. They ran out of characters. Okay. So the reason I read these are real business names. I have not made these up. I'm sure there's some others out there, but we want to make sure that we're taking our nonprofit seriously because we need to go after our public funds. We need to be memorable. We need for the world to consider, that we've got some type of acumen. I mean, really. And when I establish nonprofits each day, I have this conversation, not to dissuade you from what's in your heart, but just to shed some light on a few things. All right. The ideal length for a business name is only 10 to 15 characters, 1 to 2 words. Okay. 10 to 15 characters, 1 to 2 words. How does that stack up here? 10 to 15 characters, 1 to 2 words. And you can see that these ones way exceed what the standard or best practice is for a business name. Okay. Third, fewer names make it easier for people to understand, retain, and share them. I can't even remember those names in whole on the other screen. And I do this training and I say those names on a regular basis, and I can't remember them because I can't really take it seriously. And it's a long sentence, by the way, right? Your business name should not be a sentence. It shouldn't. It's not designed for that. The biggest and best corporations out there, think about them, nonprofit and for profit, they have a couple words. That's it. Sometimes only one word. Okay. Great business names carry positive associations. And so you want a business name that makes people feel good hearing it. And that matters because another thing that I do on a regular basis is I'm a grant writer. Okay. And I get to look at grants that have been approved. And I can promise you, let me go back. I've never seen, and I see a lot of grants every day. I've never seen a grant approved with names like this because you want a funder to take you seriously. How can they? All right. And so I got this information to share with you from Brand Bucket, and they would know a thing or two about names. If you've ever gone to get your or tried to get your domain name, right, from like the GoDaddy domain.com, and you have that perfect name and it says that your name isn't available, but it may be for sale from a broker. Well, this is a broker, and this is what they do. They go and find the best names, the names that everybody wants, and they buy them so that you have to then buy them or purchase them through them for $1,000 or more. Okay. So they know about names. This is all they do is names. So I'm sharing this with you because I want you to be okay out there. Like I didn't have to have these two long-winded screens, but I feel like it'd be a disservice to you for me to show up and pretend that all this is okay when it isn't. All right. So give thought to your name, give thought to the length because I want you to be okay out there. All right. So number two, assemble a board of directors. And I get it. Let me tell you, I get this question. So where do we find them? Okay. So yeah, we want to too, but where are they? And let me share that this is a pain point for a lot of nonprofits out there. Those that want to establish and those that are already established all face this same situation. Where do we find good board members or board members, period, that's going to support our mission? And let me just share some things that I have come across. I used to be a board chair, so I've been in your shoes and I understand. I want to tell you. All right. And so your personal and professional network, that's where you start. And I know that's a no-brainer, but it really is where you start. You know, your family can't all sit on your board, but they may know somebody that shares your mission, or they can at least put the word out, you know, in their own networks that there's an amazing nonprofit that's looking for some great help or support, right? They can do that. Your constituents, if you have already started serving people, look at the people that you serve. Is there anybody in that grouping that might make good board members, right? Look at your volunteers. If you're out there and you're a nonprofit, maybe you've got volunteers, people who have already helped you that might consider becoming a board member. Don't disregard them. Sometimes they are the best board members to have. Local businesses, you're passing businesses on a regular basis, getting to and from your office or home or wherever else you're going. And many times these business owners would actually become a board member, but nobody's ever asked them. Nobody's gotten to know the manager of or the owner of the mom and pop shop up the street. Nobody's gone into any of these places of business just to let them know, hey, we're also a nonprofit. We're in your community and we'd love for us, you know, somehow to partner on something that's going to benefit the community. They like that because they want more business, right? You like that because now you get to build community trust with these partners. So think about your local businesses. Look at professional service providers. You might have an attorney, an accountant, I don't know, a dentist, a plumber, whoever you have. Think about some of these people who come into your house to do different things, or you go out to them to get things done. A lot of these service providers, they would probably join a board. Nobody asked them, right? And so think about who you already know. I know I don't think anybody gets these big, huge white pages. Y'all know older ones, y'all know what I'm talking about. But used to be, you can just flip through and find, different professionals, but now you can just do that online, right? You can just go online and do that. Colleges and universities. So I also train at colleges and universities, and one university shared with me, they said, Cheryl, we would love to be able to have some more partnerships within our community. How might we get to know the nonprofits? And I thought, are you kidding me? They would love to partner. What nonprofit wouldn't want to partner with a college or university? So they're sitting back thinking, how do we get partnerships? And you all are thinking nothing because you're not even thinking that the university or college could be your partner, right? But not only I'm talking here about board, but there's so many other partnership opportunities. But on the board level, to be a board member, you have to be 18 years old, right? Many of us know that because you can't do anything if you're not of legal age. Well, most, not all, most college students are over 18, all right? And certainly the faculty are. So professors and deans, and they're all over that age. And so think about what your nonprofit does and think about which college or major might you get a board member from. Go talk to the colleges. Figure out, is there a way that we can, get our advertised that we are looking for board members? I can go on that one. I mean, because gosh, it's so vast, but, keep that one in your pocket as well. Ask for referrals from partners. So maybe you're partnering with somebody. Maybe you've referred people to a location for whatever service. Well, reach out to some of these folks and ask them, do they know either them or they know other folks that might be willing to join a board? You even can go to online platforms, right? I would just be real careful because I always say sugar and salt look the same until you taste it. Okay. So just make sure that if you are going to online platforms, that you've got some type of process for filtering out people who really shouldn't be on your board. Okay. All right. And so this is where you can get some board members. All right. And so then you've got your board members. Now, together, you're going to draft your bylaws. And so bylaws are your governing documents. And this is what you draft in order to share with the board how you are going to govern yourselves as a board, how you're going to work together, essentially, right? And so in this document, you'll have the number of board members, you're going to have board term limits, you're going to have job descriptions, duration, committees. You're even going to hopefully add contributions. So if you are a board that decides you're going to have board dues, then you'll talk about what that looks like in your bylaws, right? How often, how much, that kind of thing. And so all of these things really help you and the board work together as a team. Now, once you have your bylaws drafted, you've got your board, you've got your name, you're ready. It's time to actually go and establish your nonprofit corporation. You're gonna do that at your state level. So you're gonna form the corporation, which means filing your articles of incorporation with your Secretary of State. Every state has one called different things, but it's the Secretary of State's office. And just so you know, and I know that this is not the case for North Carolina, but just keep an eye out if you're in some of these states because some states require you to have a legal notice in a newspaper before you incorporate. And again, it's not North Carolina, but if you are coming in from some of these other states, just know that that's out there. That's a thing. All right. And so now, big thing is, as you're doing this, many states, not all of them, are going to ask you up front who's on the team. Right? They're going to want to know who are your officers, who are your directors. They want to know this information. And so I figured I'm going to just take a moment, right? Take a beat to share with you what these means. So what this means. Your nonprofit corporation has two types of stakeholders, directors or board of directors, and then you have officers. Sometimes these people are the same people, right? Meaning they're a board of director, but they're also an officer. So why do we have to talk about this? Why is this even necessary? Well, the state requires corporations, I don't care what kind, to have officers. Okay, every state. The IRS requires you to have direct board of directors. So we're going to have to marry these two, right? And so you're going to have both of these things, right? And so sometimes they're the same people because that's allowed. But just so you know the distinction, your board of directors, this is your governing body. Again, they're going to set your mission. They establish policy, all right? And so that means all policies. Policies do not become established from the staff or volunteer level. It all comes from your board of directors, all policy. They have an obligation of duty of care, loyalty, and obedience. I've got a training on board of directors that goes over all of this. But for now, just know they've got some legal fiduciary responsibilities to really handle the nonprofit with care and consideration. All right. Now, your officers, they're different. All right. So, yes, there are people in charge. Yes, they actually are considered unofficial board directors, but they're not a governing body. These ones are appointed by your board to manage the day to day of the corporation, carry out the board's decisions, and they are required by state law. So, you got to have them if you're a corporation. All right. So, you've got your board of directors who govern everything. And then you've got your officers who they can be paid, they can be unpaid, but they're appointed because your state requires it. And in doing so, the board will have them manage daily things like your CEO, your CFO, right? Your COO. And so, most times when people are super small and they're just getting started with their organization, they will double down on a similar position. So, for instance, you might be the board chair and the CEO. You might be the board treasurer and the CFO. You might be the secretary and the secretary. It's the same name on both sides, right? And so that's okay to do. But as you start to get bigger, then you probably more than likely are going to separate those positions and have the board be the governing body, and that's it, and have officers, face of the organization, and that's it. But just so you know, every position serves at the pleasure of the board. Every position. The board is the top. All right. And so just, I needed to say that because many people have trouble understanding the differences of directors. They're in charge of everything. Officers are just in charge of what they've been appointed to be in charge of, right? They answer to the board. Okay. All right. Enough on that one. Number five, you have established those bylaws, right? You've appointed your officers, and so now you're going to go ahead and you're going to adopt those bylaws. When you do that at your first official board meeting, and in that meeting, you're going to first elect your board, your treasurer, your secretary, your chair, and then that grouping, if they're going to, at a minimum, they're going to adopt the bylaws, and they may have other things that they get to in that meeting. There's so many things I can talk to you about on this. If you have questions about that first meeting, please ask me. But there's a lot that needs to happen in that first meeting. But the primary point of me bringing it up here is that's number five on your to-do list for establishing your nonprofit. Number six, obtain your EIN. You don't necessarily have to hire somebody for this. I'm not going to tell you not to, but I'm saying it's free to apply. The IRS has updated their website. They've made it very easy for you to go onto the website, apply for your EIN, get that number within like a minute or two. Really, it doesn't take that long, right? And so you can do that step. You have to do that step to get to step seven. All right. You cannot apply for IRS tax exemption without an EIN. All right. So you go and you do that. And now here we are, friends. We are finally at the point where we're going to make some decisions on how we apply. So you can apply either using the 1023 full version or the EZ. And the easy is what you see. It seems like it's easy, right? It's a couple pages. And which form that you complete really does depend on the type of entity you're trying to establish. Sometimes the IRS has guidelines on entity type. So, for instance, if you want to be a church, if you want to be a school or hospital, well, those are entity types that you can't file 1023 EZ for. You have to file the full version if you want certain entity types. Assets, the IRS looks at, well, how much money has the organization already accumulated? If you're over 250,000, you're not eligible to complete the EZ form. Revenue, if you are planning to earn over a certain dollar amount, in the next 3 years or currently earning, you won't qualify for the 1023 EZ. And lastly, your activities. Maybe you're not a church or a hospital. Maybe you've got the right assets under 250 and that you haven't earned revenue yet. But maybe you want to do something like, what can I name here? Maybe you want to do credit counseling. Okay. And you tell the IRS this is what you're planning on doing. Well, that activity you cannot do that activity and complete the 1023 EZ. That you have to complete the full version, 1023 standard application. So the form that you complete depends based on your activities, is based on your activities. All right. And so let's talk about that. I would like for everybody, if you're interested in doing this seriously, go ahead and get a copy of the instructions for the 1023 EZ because a lot of this is going to be spelled out there for you. So this is a 2.5 page application. Takes about 4 to 6 weeks to process. There are no attachments. The fee is $275, but again, you must qualify. And so that easy instruction guide is going to be helpful for you because at the very back, you're going to find the eligibility worksheet. The IRS says you must complete this worksheet before you complete the 1023 Easy application. You must, it's a requirement. If you answer yes to any of these questions here, then you are not eligible to complete the 1023 Easy. Every one of the questions you have to answer honestly no to. All right. And there's about 34 questions now. They just increased the questions. There's about 34 questions right now. Okay. All right. And so let's say that you can't answer no to all those questions, which means you don't qualify for 1023 EZ, but all is not lost. You can still complete the 1023 full version, the standard application. And it's a little larger, right? It can easily be over 40 pages when all things are considered. It takes 4 to 6 months to process, although we've had a few get processed. I know this sounds hard to believe, but within a month, we literally had one, actually two get processed really fast. But on their website, the IRS says 4 to 6 months. Attachments and schedules. Attachments are just things like your organizing documents, your bylaws. They want to see those. Other things they might ask you to attach. Your schedules, that just means if you've told the IRS that you're going to do certain things like I'm going to be a school, right? Now that just means you've got a separate application you've got to complete in addition to the 1023. So that's what a schedule is, extra application, more questions. It may be required if you don't qualify for the 1023 EZ. The fee is $600. And that's pretty much what I want you to know about the full standard version. When you decide whichever one you're eligible for, rather, you will go to pay.gov to apply. This is where you apply at. All right. We're going to keep moving. We're doing really great on time. I'm going to be able to finish and then just really dig into your questions. So because we only have maybe five, not even 10 minutes of talk time left. If you have questions, please go ahead and put them in the Q&A because I'm going to get to them in short order. All right. So let's go ahead and talk about compliance. It's not enough just to become tax exempt. I want you to remain compliant. All right. Fulfill your missions. And so you've got oversight at the state and the federal level. Your oversight at the state level is because you're a corporation. Corporations are governed by state law. Most states are going to require annual registration. That means every year you're going to let them know you're still in business, update them on any changes within your business in terms of they don't want to know every little thing you're doing, but has there been an address change, right? Is there a registered agent change? So what's changed on that, high level front? Charitable registration, if your state does require charitable registration, you're going to make sure you comply with that. Here's the great thing that most states have a charities tab where if you click on that tab, it is not about how you register your business. It's about how you register your charity to actually fundraise from citizens of that state. So if you want to start your nonprofit and become incorporated, you're going to check on business registration. If you're already incorporated, you're going to go to the charities tab so you can do the next step, which is your charitable registration. And just about every state has this same process. Okay. Okay. For the IRS tax code is governed by federal law. Okay. And so every single year, you're going to have to talk with the IRS in writing, right? You're going to submit the IRS 990 postcard, and that's if your organization brought in no money, all the way up to 50,000. If you bring in between 50, I missed a zero there. If you bring in between 50 and 200,000, then you can complete the 990 EZ. And if you complete or if you bring in more than 200,000, then you're responsible for completing the IRS 990 full version. Okay. If you do this on a regular basis every single year, you're fine. But if you don't do this for 3 consecutive years, the IRS will automatically revoke your IRS determination and you will have to reapply. Okay, sustaining your public charity. Let's get into the money. And this is really just one slide, well, two slides. I used to think that when you became a nonprofit, you just go out there, apply for a grant, and just pays for everything. That's what I literally thought. I'm not even kidding you. I did. And when I got into this field, started helping nonprofits, I realized it's not so easy. It doesn't mean it can't be done, but you will be asking every year. Okay. And so I've got clients and people will come to me and ask questions like, well, Cheryl, I need to have a building, a staff, and a van before I can actually, get engaged in my activities. And I don't mean to be facetious and make fun of that, but I do want to tell you that's not realistic. Most often, you will need to start your programs and then go and ask for help. The nonprofits that do, the private foundations that do say that they're going to offer startup funds, if it's startup funds because you haven't started anything, it's usually $1,000 or under. That's not going to sustain your income or your nonprofit. Okay. If you're looking for real grants to do real work, that means that you've got to also share with the funder that you've started something, that you've got skin in the game. Nobody wants to fund all of you. All right. They want to fund some of you for a little bit, and then they're going to move on, which means you got to keep asking different foundations to actually support you. There's lots of ways you can generate income. Fee for services. I actually like this one probably the best because this is where you've got a service that you sell something that's mission aligned. Think about the Girl Scouts and those yummy cookies, right? Think about the Goodwill and they've got the retail store, right? They're mission aligned and they can bring in dollars. There's mandatory and membership fees. So think about mandatory fees. Think about childcare programs, right? The childcare centers are out there charging tuition. Think about the membership. You might think of YMCAs that are out there where they've got membership fees, right? These are all mission aligned activities. They are well within their rights to charge these fees. And these are, if they're mission aligned, it's not going to be an income tax situation. Okay. There's charitable contributions. Now, I like these for a different reason. I like these because when you get into fundraising, individual donations, and bequests, this really has very little to do with your mission because IRS says these categories, this is mission aligned, right? And you can do these on and on. So even if you just name the cause and you decide to go out and fundraise, the IRS says fundraising is unrestricted income. You can do that. It becomes an issue if you decide, okay, let's say you're going to, let's say that your fundraising is you got community movie night. Let's just say that. Better things to think of. And so community movie night, people come on out and you're raising funds for whatever you're raising funds for, right? But let's say you say, well, this was great. We're going to do this every single night. We're going to do this every single week. This is how we're going to earn all of our income. We're going to be a movie theater out in the public. Well, if you're doing something, a commercial business on a regular basis to generate income that's unrelated to your mission, that's where you get into trouble with unrelated business income. Okay. So that's when you're doing it on a regular basis. It's a commercial business and it's generating your income. It has to be mission aligned. Otherwise, you are in hot water. Okay. So we want to keep it straight in that respect. But so bequest, for those of you who are not familiar, that's where people decide that they are really into legacy giving. Maybe they can't give right now, but they want to leave you in their will. Love those. Over $45 billion was given last year through bequests. So don't sleep on that one. You can do it passively by just putting something on your website, like a tab. You can add it to the donate now page, give later kind of thing, or you can just do an all out campaign. Red Cross does it all the time. So that's bequest. Philanthropy. Now we're talking about grants, donations, and sponsorships. And you can get these, well, the product donations and sponsorships usually come from corporations, but the private foundations, I mean, there's about 150,000 or more private foundations in our country, and they're all giving grants. Okay. So you can actually find most of these through databases, through grant databases. And then the last segment I want to mention, and I almost didn't mention this one, but this is government grants. I almost didn't mention because if you're really new, maybe this is not for you today, but maybe it's for you later. But I kept it here for two reasons. One, folks, our government gives about $700 billion every year in grants. I have to put them here. They give so much, right? Private foundations give just over 100 billion, but our government gives 700 billion. So I've got to put them here. Secondly, it can be done. I mean, it can. Like literally this year, I'm telling you, y'all, this year we helped an organization become established and they got their IRS determination letter. And the next day, we had just finished completing a federal grant for them because we weren't sure we'd be able to, submit it, and we did. Last week, they got approved for this six-figure federal grant, and they hadn't even started their programs yet. Now, I know I just said all these other things, but this particular grant allowed for specific things to which we applied for them. And I'm telling you, there are opportunities out there. There are opportunities. The government opportunities are a little more challenging for new organizations, but depending on the right opportunity, the stars align. They don't require a match. They're not going to be asking you to, do anything that you aren't capable of doing. Then you apply for whatever you're qualified for. You don't step back and say, well, maybe I can't do it. Maybe they don't want me. I want us to get rid of imposter syndrome. If you qualify, apply, period. Right. And so for government grants, there's just some things you do have to know. And we had to hustle for this organization. You going to make sure you have partners in writing, MOUs, letters of support, that kind of thing. You've got to document your program like you are an architect. I'm not kidding. Okay. Everything's got to line up. That's what I meant. Stars have to align. If it's a federal grant, you've got to be registered for sam.gov. Go ahead and do that anyway. I mean it. Once you become tax exempt, even if you're not sure if you're going to need or want a federal grant, do it anyway so that when the time comes, you don't miss an opportunity because you're not registered. It's going to take you about 4 to 6 weeks, contrary to what they say on their website, to get that registration done for sam.gov. So just go ahead and do it. All right, so that's what I want to say about government grants, but these are ways that you can generate revenue for your organization. See, that was only like 5 minutes, folks. All right, so quick resources for you, and then we're going to take your questions. And so I talked about the free website. That is 48 in 48. So 48 for those of you who are just listening in, the number 48in48.org. Okay. And they will create 48 websites for 48 nonprofits every single quarter. The only downside is you've got to get on a list. So go ahead and get yourself on that list if you already are tax exempt. There is Zeffy. I like them for new nonprofits, especially because you can see here they've got so many amazing services that they offer. Their platform is just very robust and it's 100% free. There is grantmakers.io and then Zeffy. They're coming into the game, and these are 100% free. Grantmakers.io, they house over 100,000 private foundations in their data set so that you can find these foundations and see who they've given to and giving amounts. All right, and then there's SCORE. I would be remiss if I didn't say SCORE is also on your top list because on the short list for you, because mentoring support is also free. Now, everything out there is not free, but there are some good free out there, and I put SCORE in the category of good free. You can sit down with the mentor for as often as you like to be able to share some of your business aspirations or your nonprofit aspirations, and then get some guidance and advice on how you move forward, right? And they are right there. They've got some amazing mentors every single day from different walks of life who are they volunteer their time to help you. All right. So please consider score.org. All right, and there's other resources. So if you have sat through here because you are considering a business structure or a nonprofit structure and you're just not sure, well, for business structures, you'll go to sba.gov. If you're wanting to understand more about tax exempt organization types, you're going to go to the irs.gov. If you're wanting to view a copy of a full application for tax exemption, you're going to find that on pay.gov. If you're wanting to know about registration, like how much does it cost, I like using Harbor Compliance because they have like charts that will break down every single state and how much it costs to incorporate in those states. If I've talked you out of becoming a nonprofit, I'm so sorry. But if I have, then please consider at least partnering with a nonprofit to get your public charity mission out there. And if you did that, that partnership arrangement is called fiscal sponsorship. And you can find out more about that on fiscalsponsorshipdirectory.org. And if you want more understanding about the nonprofit sector itself, like what's happening in this sector, and you want to get answers to some other pressing questions, then I would encourage you to sign up for the National Council of Nonprofits newsletter. I love it. They keep me in the know with what's happening in this sector. And so that would I would encourage you to do the same. Now, this is for domestic nonprofits. Domestic meaning you're going to be US based and you're only going to be supporting individuals, organizations in the US. If you're international, then you have a different set of resources. So you still will go to the IRS for exempt types, but if I were in your shoes, I would go and see first, which treaties we have in place. You can find treaties at the U.S. Department of State, and then you are required to actually look at the U.S. sanctions list because there are a lot of countries and individuals that we can't play with. Okay. Our country says that these are in this list you can actually find on the Office of Foreign Asset Control website. But if you go there, you'll be able to see the whole list, and it's usually on the first page of the countries that you can't do business in or do business with, in addition to people. And so, for international professional employer organizations, this is if you want to be a professional employer. I would probably seek expert advice through some of these ones I've got listed here, like Papaya, Velocity. I would look at them. I have dealt with international employees myself, but not as the employer, okay? Employer of record. I have used companies to do that with. I use personally remote, but there's also Deal, again, Papaya Global, and there's others. And that just means that if you want to hire somebody, even in the US, and you're not up to snuff or speed on international laws, if you want to take that on, do that. I'm a busy person. I didn't. So I used in EOR, employer of record. And that way I was able to hire who I wanted to hire. They managed everything else for me. If you want to know more about the inner workings of, the legal side of becoming an international nonprofit, there are so many experts out there. I've listed some of the top ones: international nonprofit lawyer, tax employment lawyers. The examples could be Edie Bailey. I love Edie Bailey. I've subscribed to their YouTube channel because always something you can learn there. And then I also personally like the Nonprofit Law Center because there's a lot of information for international nonprofits that you can find there, domestic and international. But if you're going to be international, I just want you to get up to speed on some of the requirements of you that you'll have. All right. And so I love to share this number and website because this is where you can go to speak directly to the IRS about your exempt entity or your potential exempt entity. They will answer the call and they will answer your questions. All righty. And so I want to do one last thing as we wrap up, and we are wrapping up. First, thank you for sitting through all of this. I think you guys are absolutely amazing. I can tell your heart's in it because you're still here. But I also know the kind of person you are. And I know that because you're still here. And so I want to pour into you. I've got 2 slides, so bear with me. You just get comfortable and listen to this. Somebody's got to tell you this. I mean, you're always out there for everybody else. You are iron for everybody else. You're the alpha in every circle. People look up to you. You're always motivating everybody else. But my goodness, it's your turn. So I've got something for you. You are here for a reason. You are capable. You are resilient. You are a beacon of hope. You are a breath of fresh air. You are smart and strategic. You are dedicated and hardworking. You are a compassionate advocate. You are a source of inspiration. You are proof that one person can change the world. You are a role model for those who want to make a difference. You are a resourceful person, making the most of every opportunity. You are a lifelong learner, consistently improving yourself. You are a visionary with the ability to see possibilities where other people see obstacles. You are exactly what this world needs right now. You are building a legacy that will impact generations to come. You are a voice for the voiceless. You are a beautiful soul. You are one of a kind. You are a gift to this world. You are making a difference. You are worthy. You are enough. You are amazing. I honestly mean that from the bottom of my heart. I know that about you. And it's about time somebody told you. I know you got this. I know you do. All right. We want to thank SCORE Charlotte for allowing this platform for us to share this information. We could not be here without them. All right. I almost forgot. I put this in here for a reason. Score.org National started, what is this? They started courses in December, folks. And they asked me, I was so honored to create a grant writing course for small businesses because most of what I do is for nonprofits, and I'm happy to do that. And so they have this at academy.score.org if we've got any small businesses who are interested in actually going through a course for grant writing. All right, so enough on that. And I am Cheryl Smith. So this has been my absolute joy to be here with you today. These are the things that I do every day. Mostly it's about you, making sure you're okay. All right, and so I want to thank you sincerely from the bottom of my heart. And we are going to rest here. We're going to rest right there on this screen. And so I'm ready to take our questions right now. So I'm going to go over to Q&A and I'm going to just take it from the top. If you want to follow along with me, please do. So for those of you who I've already exhausted all of your time, you've got this day job. Don't go losing your day job and inboxing me. If you got to scoot, scoot, okay? You're going to get the recording. But if you can hang out, I'm going to go ahead and answer the questions now. All right, so we're going to go with Cynthia first. Hey, Cynthia. Cynthia says, would it be the measuring stick or criteria for the reason to become, or what would be the measuring stick or criteria for a reason to become a nonprofit as a part of, as opposed to for profit? Cynthia, it really just boils down to what you actually want to do. Your power and control. I mean, nobody can really convince you to do it. And I know you're not asking that, but I get this question a lot, and it really, in your heart what you want, right? And sometimes we will sacrifice what we want because we think what we want might be challenging or too difficult, or do we have time for this? I would just say go for what you want, shoot your shot. We have one life. And so if in your heart you really want to be a nonprofit, do that. Go through what you've got to go through. Do the thing you came here for, because there is no repeats. In terms of the for profit, the biggest thing I can say, the biggest difference is back to power and control. A for profit you own, you can sell it. Nobody's in your business about how you earn those profits. Hire who you want, that kind of thing. A nonprofit, none of that. People are going to be in your business about how you use your profits. You can't sell it because you don't own it. So it really comes down to, power and control. That's what I would say. And so you'll use your best judgment, Cynthia. I know you will. And I would just say, go with your heart. It won't steer you wrong. And thank you for your question. And Debbie, hey Debbie, are you allowed to pay yourself via the nonprofit? Hey Debbie, you can pay yourself, but it's not really like you paying yourself. It's really the board hiring you and then paying you. So you go through the board to be hired as whatever you're going to be hired as, maybe the executive director if you're the founder, and you do need board approval for that. And then the board decides on the job description and the pay, but it can absolutely be done. And thank you for your question. Latanya, hey Latanya, and you ask, what are the first three critical board member roles we need to fill to be legally compliant? So, you to hold a board meeting, you need a chair. To record the meeting, you need a secretary. At a minimum, you need those two positions. The third position is usually a no-brainer, and that's your treasurer. So I would say those are the three positions: your chair, your secretary, and your treasurer in that order. And thank you for your question. Latanya has another. Hey, Latanya. So, what is the number one mistake nonprofits make in the first year that causes them to shut down? Not planning and execution. That one is really easy. Planning and execution. And sometimes the planning takes time and the execution takes money. So the nonprofit founder decides they don't have time or money, and so then they don't do anything. That's the number one mistakes to me. Davithia, hey there. And so you ask, can you send the slideshow to my email? That would be a score thing. Davithia, you may have come in late, but I don't actually send the slides. So that's everything is going to come from Score. And if you registered and that's the email they're going to send it to. And if you have trouble accessing the slides, please reach out to Score on that one. And I've got their slide right up here, and that's the email address or the website address. And thank you for your question. Latanya, hey Latanya, I have a for-profit business, but would like to have a nonprofit to teach local kids farming and gardening and eating. How can I do both and stay compliant? Well, you need a strong conflict of interest policy. The board's number one job is to prevent conflict and save the nonprofit from fraud in addition to furthering its mission. And so, not that you're going to defraud your organization, but it is a conflict. If you have a business that you are the CEO of and that you're also a person of control in your nonprofit, that is a conflict. So, you have a strong conflict of interest policy. Ensure that you are not charging more than market rate for anything you're charging your nonprofit. You should be under market rate, actually, and make sure that the board has made the decision to partner with your for profit independent of your vote. That's what I would say on that one. And thank you for your question. I've one for Anonymous from Anonymous. Hey, Anonymous. And Anonymous says, I have a nonprofit created about a year ago and I have not done anything with it. Shame on you. And not sure when I will. I have nothing to report annually, so should I dissolve it or keep it for future opportunities? Anonymous, I think that this one might be a score conversation. Not that I can't answer it, but I don't know enough about you personally or professionally to give you that kind of advice, whether you should, dissolve it or not. That's going to be entirely up to you. If you think that you may use it in the future, just make sure you keep up with the IRS requirements so they don't dissolve you. And that's what I would do in that situation. But if you're thinking you may never use it, then I think you already know the answer to that one. But I would sit down with SCORE, a mentor, and just kind of like brainstorm that out and make a good decision. You've got this. All right, another one from another Anonymous. Our board is composed of 4 members. 2 are related and 2 are not. I'm assuming we would need to add another position of non-related member to be compliant. Actually, you're going to need to add more than that, because if you have 4 board members and 2 are related, remember you've got to have majority unrelated. So let's say you've got, let's say 2, I'm not even going to do the math for you right now, Anonymous, but just make sure it goes back to what I said, the majority, whatever you do at the end of the day. So if you had 3 board members and 2 were related, then you're going to need 5, right? So I guess you'll need 6. You need to have a majority unrelated. So your guess is absolutely right. And thank you for your question. And Cynthia, hey Cynthia, since I already have an EIN number and I am an LLC as a for-profit, would I need to create a new EIN and LLC under the same name of my org? You confused me on that very last word, same name of your org. Cynthia, I think, and please correct me if I'm wrong, I think you're saying, I want to know what you're saying. I kind of think I know what you're saying. So let me just answer what I think you're saying. Your nonprofit, most states, and check with your state, most states will not allow you recently to convert your for profit to a nonprofit. That's the first thing. The second thing is, I'm not sure which state you're in, but most states don't allow LLCs, only 5 out of like 50. So a lot of this is that I'm reading in here, I'm not really sure what to do with. So this is what I would say to you. And even if you did have even if you were in a state where you could convert your for-profit and you were able to have an LLC, I don't know that you want to do that, because that would mean you're automatically ineligible for the 1023 EZ. Just doing those 2 things would make you, it would be a requirement rather that you complete the full version, and that is 4 to 6 months, $600, when you could have just started a whole new nonprofit. You could have started a nonprofit under a corporation, new name, new EIN, and paid your 275, 4 to 6 weeks. I don't know enough about your situation, but just what I'm thinking I'm seeing, that's the path I would go. But again, I'm not really reading the question as I think I should. So if I've messed something up for you on this question, please circle back with me, okay? And thank you for asking. All right, so then we've got Denise. Can a board consist of the founder and one other volunteer? Um, it could, but it shouldn't. There are some states that will allow that. Most states require that you have at least 3 board members. I would check in with my state on that, Denise, to make sure, but most often you want to have 3. All right. And then your volunteer would be a volunteer, obviously, for the board, but you would have, it would be the 2 of you, and you add one more person so you can have your 3 so that you're compliant. All right. And thank you for that question, by the way, Denise. And then there was Glenda. Hey, Glenda, after you're established, how do you add board members? Okay. All right. Okay. And I'm thinking, because I'm thinking you're meaning that once you have an established organization and you've got your initial board, how do you add more? That's what I'm thinking you're saying. You're saying, Glenda, but let me know if this isn't it. You add a board member by vote. Actually, even the initial board members. So what happens is when, let's say that I'm starting a nonprofit and I want you, and since Denise's question is next, I want you and Denise, you guys are going to be on my board, all three of us. We're unrelated, we're fine. And when we get ready to do our first meeting, I'm the founder. So I get to call you all together to say, hey, we're having a meeting, we're going to take a vote. The very first vote that happens is going to be the vote to vote me in as the chair. Okay. And then we're going to vote in because somebody's got to chair the meeting. And then we're going to vote our secretary in, and then we're going to vote in our treasurer, right? So we have to have the vote. Now we have our founding board, and it's official. Thereafter, anybody else that joins, we all three of us, we're going to vote to bring in that new member. Now we have four. A new member wants to come along. Now all four of us are going to vote to bring in the new member. So it's always done by vote. I'm hoping that makes sense. Thanks, Glenda, for that. Denise, hey there, Denise. If your nonprofit isn't selling much related to your mission, how to handle reporting? Is this tax exempt or do you need to create a for-profit to adequately set? So there's a lot going on in this question, Denise. And so if your nonprofit is selling, oh, merchandise, all right, selling merchandise related to your mission, how do you handle reporting? I want you to talk to your SCORE mentor about that one because now we're getting into reporting, which there's so much to share in that, Denise, believe it or not. It'd be hard for me because reporting what? Reporting how? For a funder, for the IRS, for the state, for your board, for, I'm not really sure. So I'm thinking that you're going to be best served to get a quality response and attention to use your SCORE mentor for that question. If you're selling merchandise and reporting, I'm not really sure what we're asking because you've got all kinds of things. You've got software, databases. So I would say talk with your SCORE mentor to kind of hash out what you're really asking in that question to get the answer you deserve. That's what I would say to that one. But thank you so much for that, for asking. Veronica, what department would you contact at colleges and universities regarding partnerships? They usually all have a community section. And I'm trying to think right now what a familiar one would be. You'll know. How about this? Even if you called the college or university and just said, hey, I'm a nonprofit, I'd like to partner with the university. They're going to ask you in what area, and they're going to get you to the right person. But there is a department for community. What is it? Community relationships, community partnerships. Go to the university's website, go to the menu of options, and try to find that department. If you can't, call the university, tell them what you want, and they'll know, and they'll get you to the right department. I'm having a brain fart right now, and I can't remember the department to share with you. But thank you for that question. All right, appreciate it. Cree, hey there, Cree. Cree says, are schools, public or private schools, able to partner with us or to be on the board of directors as well? The answer is short and sweet, Cree. Absolutely, they can. Usually, public and private schools, you'll have like the school itself represented by the principal sign an MOU and partner with you. That happens on a regular basis. Uh-oh. Did I miss something? Pete, is it? Oh, I'm sorry. We're out of time. Is that what it is?
Mm-mm.
No, we're good.
Yeah.
Okay, okay. And so, folks, we are out of time. I'm going to answer more questions, but if you have to leave, please leave knowing that you're going to get the recording, okay? I want to tackle some more of these questions, though. All right, and so I'm talking now to Alicia. Can the board members change yearly? If so, what do you do to change? Oh, okay. Yes, they can. And so it's your bylaws. Alicia, your bylaws are going to determine what that change looks like. So you might say, that we have elections or term limits are yearly. You might say term limits are 3 years or every 5 years. You, as the board, you'll decide that. And then every change you make to how this happens in through your bylaws. So if you want to change that, you got to change your bylaws first, and then you change your procedure. I'm hoping that that makes sense. So it starts with a board meeting, a review of your bylaws, making sure this is what you want, changing it to whatever you want to change it to. And then when the board member's term is up, in order for them to continue, they will do that by vote. You'll have to vote on it. I hope that makes sense. Anonymous. That saying about people wanting to have a business with a nonprofit arm, it seems like it is possible for private foundations, but not public charities, right? Sort of. I mean, the nonprofit, it really isn't owned by anybody, but you'll more often hear private foundations refer to their arm, their corporate arm, because they have more power and control than a person would, or a group would for with a public charity. So yeah, that's exactly right. Melanie says, if we have an EIN associated with our for-profit LLC, would we need an additional one for the nonprofit? Yes, you would, Melanie, absolutely. So Rudine, Attorney General's office of your state, will they also need a copy of the bylaws and the articles of incorporation? That really just depends on the state. I've terminated organizations at their request, obviously, from different states, and there's different requirements. So what I usually need to do is I usually need to go and read the requirement for the state and then follow the guidelines. So some states do require articles or something, at least a notice of termination. Other states require different things. So I would say check in with your state attorney general's office on that, because it does change state to state, just like the requirement of how you organize yourself changes state to state, or can. Same is true for dissolutions. Octavia, hey Octavia, um, can you file an EZ, then once established, change to the full one? That's not really how it works. What the IRS is counting on you to do is to, be as completely as transparent as you can, to tell them what's going on with you at the current moment. Once you are approved, let's say that you did the EZ because you were thinking you were going to bring in under a certain revenue, because that's usually what happens. Um, and then let's say that a couple years, even 1 year, whatever, you bring in substantially more, and it just happened that way, and you are doing amazing as a nonprofit and you're bringing in revenue. The IRS does not expect you to fill out a new application. Instead, you'll just let them know what's going on by way of your IRS 990, right? So you won't reapply. You'll just bring them up to speed on your annual report that you submit to them each year. Okay. All right, Vonda. Hey, Vonda. I correctly have an LLC for private high school. Oh, I think you mean currently, have an LLC for a private high school. Is it best to apply for nonprofit status? Well, I would think that if you are wanting to pursue private foundation grants, the answer would be yes to that. Most private foundations, even if you're a statutory nonprofit, which by the way, public schools aren't, excuse me, private, pardon me, private schools are not statutory nonprofits. Public schools are. Okay, I had to get that correct. But I would say to you, school period, regardless of your school kind, most private foundations do require you to have the public charity status. And so I would say yes to that if you're looking for private foundation funding. I'm Cynthia. Hey, Cynthia. Are there people, such as bookkeepers, who can help me with my annual filing procedure, as someone that might help me to keep things in order and filed in a timely manner? It all seems to be overwhelming, and that seems intimidating, especially when I'm also trying to, yeah, I get it, Cynthia. She's also trying to run her daily operations, to finish that thought. And Cynthia, yeah, I hear you. I do. And it is, when you're an executive director, or, you're running a nonprofit, you are wearing so many different hats. So the short answer is yes, there are people out there that can help you. But the more nuanced response is, or answer is, you make sure you can afford that, because you're going to be paying for this out of the nonprofit's funds or your own pocket, and it can add up. I don't actually know bookkeepers and accountants that would do that for you for free. I don't know them. That doesn't mean they're not out there. Gosh, I hope they are, but I've never come across one. And so you'll have to pay for that. And until you're able to do that, then this will really fall squarely on your shoulders. All right. So just, I'm, sorry to be that bearer of bad news if it's bad, but that's how that works. But the answer is yes, there are people out there that will help you, but you do want to use the professional, and they will pay you. I mean, excuse me, and you will pay them. They will not pay you, you will pay them. All right, Brenda, back to Brenda. Please go over the postcard reporting for 5,000 or less to complete this form, because as stated, I started my nonprofit but have not used it for anything. Thanks. Yeah, and so Brenda, for reporting back to this, the IRS says that if you bring in an average of 50,000 or less, less is even zero. So it really doesn't matter if you bring in zero every year. In order to remain compliant, you still have to complete at the very minimum the IRS postcard. You do that through pay.gov, okay? But you do need to complete that postcard. And the postcard tells them that you are still active, you have not closed. You update the business name and the primary contact person. There's no math on that particular card, Brenda, with the exception they only ask you, did you bring in an average of 50,000 or less? And you'll answer yes or no to that. But that's what's required, even if you haven't brought in anything. Okay. And then we've got one from Candace. Hey, Candace, how often can you fundraise before it becomes taxable? You can fundraise ongoing, keep doing it. Fundraising, according to the IRS, is not taxable. The IRS considers taxable income when you're doing something on a that's a commercial business on a consistent basis to generate revenue for your nonprofit. And your fundraising is not, I mean, I don't know what you're doing, but fundraising for the IRS, these are one-off events not tied to a commercial business that you do to generate income periodically for your organization, which is why it's unrestricted and it's not taxable. And thank you for that question. Anonymous, do we need a separate EIN if we have one for the LLC? Yes, that'd be true. Anonymous, can you fill out the easy first because you don't know what you'll get, then once established, change? So no, you don't change, but yes, you can fill out the easy. And I love this question because nobody's really asked this yet. The IRS does not expect you to have a crystal, I don't have anything, a crystal ball. Okay. They're not expecting you to be psychic and predict exactly what's going to happen in the future. What they are asking you is, do you foresee this happening right now? Like foresee, that's my word. Do you have pending things out there? Do you know for sure you're going to bring in this money? They are not asking you to speculate. As a matter of fact, they encourage you not to. So if you don't know for sure that you're going to be bringing in an average of 50,000 or more, your answer is not yes, it is no, because you're not speculating. They don't want you to do that. And then if it changes, and we hope it does, then no, you don't complete a new application. You just complete the proper IRS 990 form at the end of that tax year. Okay. Rudine, Popcorn Night is an ongoing fundraiser for a specific program. How is it not mission aligned and red flagged by the IRS? I don't know. And because you're sharing with me that you're doing this ongoing, I don't know what that looks like, Rudine. I would love for you to speak with your SCORE mentor about that because I don't know what you mean by that. So if I'm selling popcorn every single night, that's a commercial business. And if you're doing it every night to bring in money, that's no longer a fundraiser, that's a source of revenue. All right. And so, yes, that can be something that the IRS considers not mission aligned unless your mission was to sell popcorn each night. Okay. So if you're selling popcorn every single night, yeah, that's considered commercial, regularly done business. And so you could get into some trouble with that routinely every so often as a fundraiser, no issues. Every night, yeah, that can be an issue. Popcorn night is an ongoing fun. And you said popcorn night. You didn't say popcorn every night, but based on my response, I think that you understand what I mean by that. Okay. Popcorn night every now and again as a fundraiser is fine. Popcorn every night that you're selling, something different. Okay. Best way to create bylaws is to create bylaws. You can literally anonymous go online, Google them. You can ask AI to create them, but whatever you do, make sure that you read it thoroughly and you make sure that you customize it to the needs of your organization. Brenda, can we get a copy of your presentation? Yeah, Brenda, this presentation is gonna be sent to you through SCORE. Absolutely. And thank you so much. Octavia, how would a person start a nonprofit with no building that's needed, or that's needed order for your nonprofit to run? Would I get the funds first? And no, okay. Octavia, you can absolutely start your nonprofit even if you think you need a building, and I don't mean to say think like you don't know what you need, but I know that most organizations can start their nonprofits without tangible physical things, and I know that. I had a pet rescue organization say, "Well, Cheryl, we rescue animals. How are we going to do that if we don't have a building?" Well, don't rescue animals the first year. Support rescue animals. get them, do something online where you are connecting them to help get rehomed. Do something other than have them coming to the building. That's what you want. And we all have wants, but you figure out what you can do to get to your want. And starting that program, it's not that I'm saying it's a requirement. I'm saying it is a best practice, and most funders don't want to fund you unless they can see you have started. That doesn't mean it's not going to be funding out there for you because again, I mentioned the one that we got approved this year before starting anything and they got a federal grant. Well, I'm a federal grant writer and my last three government grants, they all got approved. And two of them had no program or no building. And so it's beyond this conversation here for me to go into every possible detail on how that is done. So I would say this, get your ducks in a row, write out your program description, start applying for grants, get your feet wet, okay? And that way you'll get some feedback and understanding on what needs to be adjusted. And then talk with your SCORE mentor. And if you're ready to use a grant writer, most of them are going to charge you. And just know that up front. That's why I'm suggesting that you start with what you are able to do, and then if you're ready to use a grant writer, then just go and research them, talk, to them, find the one that's best suited for you, and then use a grant writer to help you get over whatever barriers you might face with grant writing. But I will tell you that most often there's outliers, but most often you will have to have something started. Okay. And again, I know I do this without things started, but most often most people need to have things started first. Sharon, can your board of directors be from different states, countries? Yeah, they absolutely can, Sharon. But the caveat to that is when you have a board member that is not local or all of them not local, sometimes the funders will ask you who on your board lives and works in the community that you serve. And it looks bad for organizations where they're asked that question and they have to come back and say nobody. We're all out of state or in another, country. Funders sometimes want to make sure that you're close to the cause. So I would say, yes, absolutely. You can have people from other areas, but you at least want somebody that lives or works in the community that you serve. All right. And Sharon, another question. All right. It seems like we need to be careful about commercial business versus mission aligned fundraiser. That is true. You do. Can you tell us where that hair gets split? Sharon, I love it. I think that if you've been listening earlier on to some, I love that so much. Sharon, I'm gonna borrow that where that hair gets split. Anyway, if you listen to some of, and I'm thinking that you had at this point, the other responses I gave, I think I probably ironed that out a little bit. It just really comes down to the three main things, and that is commercial business that you're doing on a regular basis, every day, every week, even every week, to bring in money that's not related to the reason you told the IRS that you're going to be nonprofit, right? And you're using that revenue, you're bringing in that revenue for your nonprofit. So it really comes down to commercial, regular business, ongoing, all right? That's not related to your mission. So that's where your hair gets split. I love it. Anonymous, can you fill out an easy form just to establish and then change to a full form? Oh, I think that we already covered that one, Anonymous. I think you got that one. You're welcome, Cynthia. You're welcome. Amanda, let me see how many more I've got. I am gonna stop right at there. She said, please do. I sure will. I'm stopping right at Sharon's, please do. So we're gonna go all the way up to Sharon's, please do. Then we're gonna end it so everybody can get out here and get back to your work or whatever you're doing. All right. So Amanda. Amanda says, I'm waiting to start, or I'm wanting, pardon me, I'm wanting to start a rescue for farm animals. Aw, I see unwanted farm animals all the time, but can't afford to take all of them in. I have a small hobby farm. Aw, and I want to use my farm for this, but not sure if 501c is what I need to start for this. Amanda, bless your heart. Um, anyway, yeah, you can absolutely do that. It sounds that is exactly right. I mean, 501c3, one of the most recent purpose areas that the IRS added was, that protection or what the clause for the purpose area for protection of animals or children. And so you absolutely can do that. So yeah, it sounds like it. I don't know have enough information to tell you absolute, but yeah, it sounds like you've got some great idea there and you should absolutely consider that. Follow through on that one. Anonymous, just to be sure I understand what you stated earlier, there is not an issue with having a for-profit business, completely different industry, and a nonprofit. Is that correct? Yeah, no, yeah, I'm trying to understand that. Example, art business that sells artwork and receives commission, and also become the founder of a nonprofit for autoimmune disease. Would that be it? Oh, so no, no, no. Okay. Thank you, Anonymous. Thank you. So the reason it's conflict of interest isn't because of what you're doing, it's because of you. So the IRS considers a person on the nonprofit board that has a position of power a non-qualified person or unqualified person. I'm sure I'm saying that wrong. Anyway, a person of power on the board, and there's another organization that you want to start, you can start whatever it is you want on the nonprofit side or the for-profit side. It makes no never mind to the nonprofit. It is when you want to partner together. Okay. So even though the activities are completely different, if you are a CEO of a company and you are a board member for a nonprofit and you want to partner and join these organizations in partnership, that's a conflict. It's only a conflict, not because of the activity. In this case, it's the person, which means that in order for that to happen, that partnership to happen, there needs to be a nonprofit board vote that excludes the person that's in question, right? Because you are a person of power on two different organizations that want to partner, which means you can't be involved in the vote, and it has nothing to do with what the activity is happening between the two entities. And I hope that makes sense. I hope that makes sense. Cynthia, I'm in Hawaii. Thank you for answering my confusion question about converting my nonprofit to nonprofit. You did read the question correctly. Sorry for the confusion. No worries, no worries. Oh my goodness, how is it in Hawaii? Oh gosh, I miss being there. You are correct in answering. Okay, good deal. I think it's Aaliyah. If you file an EZ form but end up earning more than 50,000, is there a penalty? I think we answered that one already. No, it isn't. It's only a penalty if it looks, feels, smells like you always meant to bring in $1 million and not 50,000. The IRS in that case could terminate your organization. There could be a penalty, all kinds of things. But usually that doesn't happen, and it's not the case. If you are thinking that you're going to bring in under 50,000, you're not going to speculate about what could happen, right? And then you bring in more than 50,000. Good for you. Just at the end of the year, make sure you report that on your IRS 990 form, okay? All right, Glenda, you are so welcome. Anonymous, can you fundraise before you get your 501c3? You can, but the thing to remember is that most states have fundraising requirements, so you're going to make sure you follow those fundraising guidelines from the state before you engage. And thank you for that. Sharon, how does the Goodwill industry open stores and sell goods every day, but are still considered a nonprofit? Well, yeah, they're a social enterprise and they're a nonprofit, but they're a social enterprise, and a part of their mission is to put good people to work. In order to put them to work, they got to work somewhere. There goes that retail store. So they're able to do that. Same way with the Girl Scouts. I mean, they are a part of their mission, I'm going to paraphrase, is to ensure these girls have leadership skills and entrepreneurship, skills as well. So in order to have entrepreneur and leadership skills, they've decided they're going to help them get out there and sell cookies. Okay? It's a part of their mission. With the Goodwill, it's a part of their mission. Sharon, please do. You're okay. All right, good deal. So I think I've answered like all of our questions. I'm going to come on out of Q&A now, and then let me come back to, okay, because I'm back to you all. Hold on. Let's stop my screen share so that we can end properly. Pete, I think that this is a wrap. I think we have done it. Oh, here we go. Stop share. Okay, so we're back.
Well, on behalf of the Charlotte Score chapter, we want to thank Cheryl. As I said, in my experience, she is our very best known presenter, and she's been very generous in giving us very thoughtful, well prepared, and incredibly energized and resourceful presentations. To answer the question that's been asked several times, the Score chapter admin should send the registrants the slides and access to the video. Somewheres I put my contact in the webinar chat. If you don't get it in a week, you can contact me and I'll track it down. I also put the
Doolin.
Doolin company website in there. It's not a direct recommendation or endorsement, but Cheryl is such a strong presence in the chapter, and she has her own business, and so that is something, this is something she does for free, but she does have a business. Otherwise, she wouldn't have time to do this for free. So that I put that in the chat twice. You can look that up, doolin.org or something to that effect out of Atlanta. So I think we ran just about the full time. We had about 140 people here. So busy, busy, long session and a great content. We want to thank you for participating. I'm not going to run the tape, but for as an FYI, the feds cut the funding for SCORE, so we are completely unfunded. So we are having to raise a little bit of money locally. We don't need much, but that is a challenge. And so some of the webinars in the future may have a small fee associated with them in order to help cover the admin costs. Anyway, there's a tape that asks you for a donation, but I'm not going to run it at this late. So thank you for participating. And you have a way of reaching Cheryl, but she doesn't come for free after today. And you have a way of reaching me. And the SCORE mentors, we are free. We're volunteers. As Cheryl said several times, you can go to score.org or score.org/Charlotte to request a mentor. We've got about 90 mentors in Charlotte. They are fantastic. And so feel free to take advantage. We will help you. Thank you very much. I think we're going to wrap it up.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.